This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is News Talk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. It is the Friday, April 12th. 1 hour edition of Talkback. Talkback this morning is brought to you by Phillips Janitorial, where if you need your home and or your business cleaned, only one number to call. It's 406-260-6617 because no job is too big or small for Phillips Janitorial. Also brought to you by Y West Storage, located, of course, out at the Y on Two Smokes Way. If you need a storage unit, here's the number, 406-510-0590, because at Y West Storage, they're making room for you. And by Harrington Surgical Supply, where you can feel confident in their discreet and knowledgeable guidance on a multitude of products and medical supplies.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Okay, here we are. It is the 1 hour edition of Talkback this morning. I'm Peter Christian, and of course, over there is the fabulous Nick Christensen. Nick, good morning, sir.
Morning.
All right, and as we always do every Friday, we're making way for the crime report. It looks like we may have lost our...
Let's see.
Here we go.
How about there?
Okay, let's try it. I believe we had County Attorney Matt Jennings on the line. Matt, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Peter.
All right, tell us what's going on, sir.
This week in Missoula County, we filed 20 new felony complaints. Of that 20, 5 of those were violent crimes. 2 were endangerment crimes. These usually involve drinking and driving and dangerous driving that puts other people at risk of death or serious bodily injury. We had 6 property crimes, and we had 7 drug crimes. Within our category of violent crimes, 4 were family violence or strangulation, and 1 was non-family violence. And so that continues to be about the average that we've seen for a couple years now. One of the things I wanted to highlight is charging 6 property crimes at the felony level is a little bit high, and we've been seeing a lot of vehicle break-ins, and some of these have started reaching felony amounts. And one of the things that people are often looking for when they break into vehicles are firearms. So we had a bunch of stolen firearms out of vehicles. I just really wanted to encourage the public to lock your car doors. Don't leave your guns in your car unless you absolutely have to, and if you do, make sure that those are secured, because the last thing that anybody wants is having your firearm stolen and then being used for other criminal acts in the future, and that is something that we're seeing a lot of. And so we had a lot of car break-ins, some on the north side of Missoula, some in Lolo. Caught some of the folks, but this is something that keeps going on. They may not be the most serious crimes. People don't always get hurt, but it leads to people feeling violated and that their home or sort of their area around their home is not safe, and obviously they're losing that property. So we're doing what we can to combat that, but any help from the public and locking stuff up, getting security cameras, that can be really helpful too.
Now, Matt, one quick question I have for you on that topic. If someone steals a firearm out of your vehicle and then uses it in a crime, is there is the owner of that firearm liable for any negligence, or is that something that's up to a judge?
Yeah, highly unlikely, Peter. Look, accidents happen. I mean, people leave stuff around. You know, to have criminal negligence, there really has to be this gross deviation from a standard of care. And forgetting to lock your car isn't a gross deviation. Now, maybe, leaving a loaded firearm on a table outside of the jail and walking away from it, that could be gross negligence, right? You kind of know that somebody might have access to it, and that situation might lead to them using it for some nefarious purpose. That could rise to that level of gross negligence, but people don't get punished for accidents, Peter. This is just sort of a public safety warning. It's not a threat to anybody in the public that forgets to lock their car doors. I certainly have to. But
it is a clarion call here, especially to be aware of what's going on out there and to make sure that you have the wherewithal to properly secure your firearm.
That's right. That's every gun owner's responsibility, and I think that's something we can all do to cut down on some of these things that we've been seeing.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Matt?
That's it for this week, Peter. Thanks.
Matt, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for the great report. As always, that's Matt Jennings, our Missoula County Attorney. We're going to come right back, and we're going to talk about water. Sorry. What the heck is wrong with this guy?
Do we have to sing?
No, you don't. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll sing for you, Ginny.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to come right back, and it's City Talk, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be visiting with Logan McInnis. He's the Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities, and that's a big business card. So we're going to come right back with City Talk, and of course, talking about water, what's going on in Missoula. We'll be back right after this.
Hey there, 8048. I'm Dennis Bragg with the latest Town Square weather forecast. Starting out Friday with a slight chance of showers, but most of the day will be partly cloudy and warm with highs near 70. Some clouds later in the evening, a chance for isolated thunderstorms, but the weekend looks good with sun and clouds Saturday and more sun Sunday with highs into the low 70s. However, conditions will begin to change Sunday afternoon with increasing clouds and a chance of rain into Monday, cooling into the upper 50s. Overnight lows near freezing could mean some spring snow showers.
Hey, welcome back. This is Talk Back, and it's the 1 hour edition of City Talk. Joining us here in the studio, of course, Nick Christensen, our intrepid producer for Talk Back. Taking your phone calls. All the phone lines are open at 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. Or, of course, you can use the KGVO app to send us a message. And, well, today we're going to be talking about water and specifically what's going on with the water mains in Missoula. Our special guest here in the studio, along with Ginny Merriam, Communications Director for the city, is Logan McInnis. He's the Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities. I read the press release and my jaw dropped all the way to the floor. I cannot, first of all, welcome. It's good to have you.
Well, it's very nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show. Now, I was reading some of these statistics, and I went, "No, that can't be true." So, if you wouldn't mind just sharing some of the sheer numbers that people might have no idea what's going on underneath them with the water system.
Sure. I think the thing we're probably most proud about is the reduction in leakage we've seen over the last couple of years. So, we have been spending a lot of the customers' money replacing water mains, and kind of finally starting to see the benefit of it, that we've reduced our leakage by 16% over the last 2 years.
Well, it might be helpful to find, if you don't mind, just sharing some of the sheer numbers, because when I was looking at this, and it says here, oh my goodness, I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, here it is. I'm looking at this. Go ahead, Jenny. I'm stammering.
By these numbers,
yes.
I know.
It says here the city's most recent leak survey showed what?
Well, a couple of different things. So currently our leakage rates is about 8,200 gallons a minute. We're still leaking a lot of water, but that's down from it was almost 10,000 gallons a minute 2 years ago.
We're leaking 10,000 gallons a minute.
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to take my shoes off and do the fingers and toes thing. So how much of that water? Now, obviously, it goes back into the aquifer, right?
Right,
so,
yeah. We're not wasting water, but we are concerned about wasting power, right? It takes a lot of energy to pump it out of the ground and run it back into the ground.
Right. And so how much water have we wasted? So let's say if you have any numbers like for a year, or not wasted, but leaked.
Yeah, so the numbers I provided here, so just what we saved over the last year is about 400 gallons a minute. So that's enough every day to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's one way to visualize it. Over a year, just that amount of savings is going to save 205 million gallons of water over a year. And if we look back 2 years, it's considerably more than that because, like I said, we've reduced it 1,600 gallons a minute over 2 years.
Okay, and so once the city had taken over, I'm sure when the city, and Ginny, you were there when all this went down, the city did a complete inventory of what's going on with the water system before they purchased it from Mountain Water and realized, oh, my heavenly days, we have an antiquated system that's leaking quite literally like a sieve. And so the city went into this with their eyes wide open, right, Jenny? Yeah, they did. Okay. So,
yes.
So knowing what had to be done, go ahead, Logan.
Well, yeah, we knew it's just going to take a lot of money to fix. And so, just since the city took over, we've spent $20 million on water mains. And, there's a lot of other things that we need to spend on the water system, too. All of our meters were failing. I mean, there's just a lot of areas where we need to spend money. So if you include what we're spending this year, we've put about $47 million into the water system. Just over the last year, we spent almost $10 million in capital investments in the water system.
Now, please forgive I'm smiling. I'm going, What? I mean, who knew? Is this perhaps one of the most expensive things that the city has had to deal with since, for many years?
I'm sure it is. Just purchasing the water system for over $100 million, I'm pretty sure that would be the largest investment the city's made in anything. And then, it's obviously needs continued investments, the $45 million that we've put into it just since then. So I'm sure it is the city's biggest investment. And
of course, the fact that the antiquated water mains, depending upon where you are, like especially up the Rattlesnake, some of those were wood, right? And has those all been replaced, or are we still dealing with that in some areas? Yeah, the wood's been out of the system. I've worked here for 18 years. And there hasn't been any wood in the system since then, fortunately. That's good to know. So we made some headway. Yeah, all right. And so what is the plan? Do you go section by section, or do you go where the need is most? Yeah, there's a lot of things we factor in. I mean, obviously, we want to go where we have the oldest, leakiest mains. But then, some of the projects we take on, if the city's going to do a street reconstruction project, we don't want to see a street built over a 80-year-old main, even if it's not the worst main in the world. We don't want a brand new street over it. So, we do factor a lot of different, things into our prioritization system. But for the most part, we're focusing on the invasion pipe and Calamine pipes that are kind of the oldest and poorest condition pipes in our system. You have to help me out. I'm a rookie here. Okay, the Calamine, you just used two big words. So for me and for all of our audience, what is specifically you're describing there? So the Calamine, those are generally about 100 years old, and it was basically a galvanized steel pipe. Fairly thin-walled, but, it's lasted pretty well. But, it's over 100 years now. So focusing on getting those out of the system. And then the invasion pipe, we may have spoken about this before. These were the surplus pipes from World War II. They were intentionally built with very thin walls, so a couple of soldiers could put them on their shoulder and they could go lay them out on a beachhead, and they were used for pumping water or pumping fuel onto the beachheads. So these... somebody got a great deal on them in 1946, and they were never meant to be buried. And here we are 80-some years later, digging them up. Digging them up, and they're kind of like Swiss cheese. All right. So, but by the way, the phone lines are open at 721-1290. If you have a question for Logan McInnis, we'd love to hear from you at 1-800-568-5309. We also have our KGVO app. Have we received an app message, Nick? Not yet. Okay. We may have an app message coming in from one of our listeners. So anyway, they let me know that they were going to try to communicate that way. So as we move forward now, obviously there's a plan, and one of the reasons you're here is to talk about this plan. So please go ahead. Yeah, I think our overall objective is to replace 1% per year. That assumes a pipe's going to last 100 years, which you don't want to assume it's going to last longer than that. I mean, that's a big objective, and we're not even there yet. That would be about 3.5 miles per year that we would like to be replacing. And, I think last year we did about 2.8 miles. We're projecting about 2.8 miles again this year. We're spending way more than we were a couple years ago, but we're not replacing more. Unfortunately, as everybody's seen, inflation in construction materials and labor has just gotten pretty out of whack. So we're just paying more and more and not really haven't met that goal yet of the 1% replacement. Well, the effort is there, and the plan is there. Let's put it that way, to try to replace all this. I realize this is not something people see every day. We realize it when we turn on our tap and the nice water comes out, and it's great, and it's clean, it's nice. But when it doesn't come out, that's when we complain. So one of the things that you're trying to do is to make sure that people just have that everyday access and don't have to worry about it as part of their everyday worries, right? Yeah, that's certainly our goal, is for people not to think about their water and sewer. That's, we want it to just work. We want, you open the tap, the water comes out, you don't think about where it came from, and you flush the toilet, and you move on with your day, and you don't really worry about what happens next. So One would hope not.
It's
All right.
not glamorous work we do.
Well, I'll tell you what, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We'd love to hear from you, Logan McInnis. And remember, this is just a 1-hour show, so we're only going to be here till 10. If you have a question or a comment, now's the time to call. Looks like we do have an app question standing by. We're going to come right back after this.
We've all got that.
And we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Larry's waiting to visit with us, but we do have an app question, Nick. What's going on?
Yeah, it's from Sandy Vasika. She said, I won't be able to call in this morning, but can you ask the guest to please speak to the project funded by President Joe Biden's infrastructure law signs that are around town on city projects and how they are required to receive those federal dollars. And please ask if those signs are paid for by the federal dollars or if they're paid for by our Missoula City property tax dollars.
All right. So there you go.
You bet. Yeah, nothing that we do in the water utility is paid for by tax dollars. So mostly our projects are funded by state revolving fund loans, very low interest, 2.5%, and then, paid back over time by customer water rates. So addressing the signs in particular, so any of these projects that are SRF funded, the loan funding, or we've received ARPA grants for some projects, any of those projects require us to post a sign in a conspicuous location.
Right.
In the past, they've been a little bit more, I don't know, just a Montana state emblem, but now the more recent requirements are, they do say that it's President Joe Biden's infrastructure law. And so if we want to get this either cheap or free money, we're obligated to put those signs up. And we do get some complaints about it.
And then they're saying, well, is that a political endorsement of some kind or a political ad of some kind?
I guess it's how you want to perceive it. We don't want to, this is the best source of money to do what we need to do. Right. And so if we don't take the money, we don't put the sign up, then we're going to have to go to the bank and borrow money for 6 or 7% when they're giving it to us at either free or 2.5% loans.
Hey, Joe, thanks for the dough. All right. It rhymes. All right. We do have Larry waiting on the line for us. Larry, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning. Just clarification, it's not cheap or free money. It's our money that's going into paying for all this. But I had another question regarding the extension of water and sewer infrastructure into these new areas. They've got the Mullen Y area, and they're talking about 15,000 new homes out in these areas. My understanding is that the water system is supported by wells. And do you have to get a permit every time you dig a well, like a individual would on their property? I know those are permits are becoming quite limited concerning water rights, and I wonder if that's a limiting factor. And also, if you get the water and put it into the system, you got to take it out. And is the location of the sewer plant a limiting factor in its capacity on how do you treat that water as we move farther into these rural areas?
Good questions.
And I'll listen.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
I'll listen off the air.
Thanks for the call. Okay. The rest of the time belongs to you, Logan.
I'll see if I can remember all those. Yeah. I'll start with, you're correct. The customers are paying for this. So we do very much appreciate our customers' willingness to pay a water bill, and so that we can help to improve the system so that it's here for the next couple of generations. But you're right, it's other than the ARPA grants we got, most of the money does have to be paid back, and so we very much appreciate our customers' willingness to participate. Relative to Mullen and the Y, I know the counties, I think you're probably referring to what's been in Missoula Current or some of the other news outlets recently.
They want to build a mini city out there.
Right, and so that, they're not talking about using city of Missoula water, to my knowledge. I mean, it's something they might consider doing, but I think that plan is more about building their own water system. So I don't know. Generally, if you build a public water supply, you're going to have to get water rights through a mitigation plan. They're generally available. It's not that this drainage is really lacking in water. It's just you sort of have to buy a water right from somebody else. So they probably will be able to accommodate that. Wastewater, it's unknown. Some of that area is served in our wastewater service area. Some of it is not. The location of the wastewater, like the Y area, it would all have to be pumped back to the wastewater plant, which, there already are pump stations out there. They certainly are undersized for what is being planned. So, any development generally has to pay for itself. So, if those properties develop and we choose to serve them, then they're going to have to pay to upsize pump stations and force mains and things. Relative to wastewater plant capacity, we're in pretty good shape, but the rules are changing and they're very hard to predict how they're going to change. So,
and who makes those rules?
Well, it's being driven by EPA. DEQ is developing rules to limit how much nitrogen and phosphorus can be discharged into the river. If you put too much of those in the river, you grow algae. So there are real reasons to make treatment plants around Montana improve what they're doing, but we already do a really good job. It just, the rules are really complicated, and nobody can predict for us right now what it's going to look like in 5 or 10 years. So anyways, I guess the jury's still out in terms of what our capacity will be to serve areas like this in the future.
Okay, and with that, we're going to take a break because we have two folks waiting on the line. Steve and Brian both want to visit with you. Our guest in the studio is Logan McInnis. He is the Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities. Jenny Merriam also joining us, the Communications Director for the City of Missoula. This is City Talk, and that's why Logan is here to talk about water and our water supply and our water mains and all those good things. So we're going to get to Steve and Brian's calls when we return right after this.
When scientists...
Hey, we're back. This is City Talk, a special edition of Talk Back this morning. Our guest in studio is Logan McInnis. He's Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities. Jenny Merriam also joining us. And the phone lines are filling up, so everybody wants to talk with Logan, so let's do that right now. Steve has been waiting the longest. Steve, thank you for holding, sir. You're on with Logan. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, sir. Hey, I have to take exception to the way you just positioned some of the projects in the Joe Biden Infrastructure Reduction Act. To say so flippantly that it's free or cheap money is really doing disservice to the people who are really suffering due to inflation. We know that inflation is predominantly caused by this huge influx of government spending during COVID and continuing. And so to say that just so flippantly really, I think, hurts a lot of people that are really struggling right now to put food on the table because the price of gas, the price of food, the price of everything is so high. I know it for you, it's easy to say that, but for a lot of people that are truly suffering due to this outrageous inflation that our country is experiencing, it's really disheartening to hear a public official say that in such a way.
All right.
Take care.
Steve, thanks for the call. Your response to that, Logan. Go ahead, sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mean to come off flippantly. I think when I say cheap money, it's low interest. Yes, we have to pay it back, and stuff is really expensive, and we do our best to keep our rates low. And we could talk about that. Our rates are really low compared to other places in the region. But I certainly appreciate that there's a lot of folks struggling, and we're doing the best we can to meet the needs. The stuff has to be replaced at some point, and we have to reduce our leakage, and so we think we're doing the best we can to balance that. But I certainly appreciate what you're saying, that folks in the community are struggling.
Okay, let's get Brian on the line. Brian, good morning. Thanks for holding. You're on with Logan McInnis. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Thanks for coming on and taking my call. You said that no tax dollars go to any of these projects, but in the same breath, you said you're using ARPA funds. That comes from the federal government. Do you know how the federal government gets its revenue?
I guess no local tax dollars is maybe a better way to put it. All of our...
well, that's a truthful way to put it, I guess. But to say no tax dollars, that's about right.
No, I apologize. That's
right.
That's what I intended, was that we don't tax people locally to pay water bills. It's a bill you pay for the water you use, but it doesn't show up on your tax bill.
Yeah. And the $500 million we spent to buy the water company.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're a little hard to understand, but thanks for the call. We appreciate it. We have Jeff waiting on the line right now. Jeff, good morning. You're on Talkback with Logan McInnis. What's your question, please?
I have a couple of idle curiosity questions. Our house is on a subdivision, has a community well, 2 community wells actually, and we end up charging people a base rate of $15 a month plus 25 cents 100 gallons. And I was wondering how that equates to what you're paying or what your customers pay for water. And then also, the subdivision was built some 25 years ago, 30 years ago with Schedule 40 mains. And we're kind of concerned about, when you talked about leakage, we're kind of concerned about running into that problem and having to deal with those. Water rate, and what would you recommend for replacing 1-inch mains for a small subdivision?
All right. Thanks for the call, Jeff. Logan.
Sure. Your rates sound maybe slightly lower than ours, but comparable. As I recall, our minimum kind of monthly rate is somewhere between $17 and $18. And then your 25 cents per 100 gallons, we charge a little over $2 per 100 cubic feet. So I think our charge is slightly more than what you're charging, but it's very much in the same ballpark. Relative to 1-inch mains, we don't have those in our system. Pretty much have 6 or 8-inch minimum, but I think the pretty standard piping material anymore for 1-inch would be poly, just kind of the black kind of rolled up pipe. So if you're putting 1-inch pipe in the ground, that's most likely what you would be using to replace it.
Now, when we come upon these water main projects, obviously they're very large, lots of equipment, lots of individuals, lots of man and woman power, if you will, who are working there. And I remember the one that was up on not far from Garrett. It just seemed like that street had been ripped up for a long time. And so tell me a little bit about the scope of what it takes to replace a water main. Does that depend on location or what?
It does, and yeah, it's painful living along a street where we're tearing up the street. We do feel bad doing that to people because, most projects last multiple months. Our typical project's probably about $1 million worth of work, and it just takes a lot of effort. You have to cut the asphalt, you have to excavate the trench out of the way, you have to, do pipe connections to connect the new pipe onto it. You have to run the pipe, you have to test every section to make sure that it's not leaking. You have to chlorinate and let it sit there for a couple of days and sort of cook to make sure there's not bacteria in it. You do all that before anybody's even connected to it. And so it's even just to replace a block of water main, it's a multi-week process, because of some of those just delays of testing and just the time it takes to dig and put the pipe in the ground. And then you still have to come back, usually at the end, and then connect all the water services to it. And then, you have to go make some more excavations to remove the old pipe. Now that everybody's connected to the new pipe, now you got to cut the old pipe out of the way. So it's kind of a multi-stage process to replace.
But the whole idea is to keep the water flowing throughout this whole process, right?
Yes. I mean, customers might be out of water for a little bit when we're tying their service line in, and generally, there might be a tie-in, they might be out of water for a few hours, right, a couple of times, but never do we put people out of water overnight intentionally. I mean, there have been times when something happened and a few people might have been out overnight, but the way we do these projects, the water stays on in service just about the whole time.
What happens when an older water main actually just breaks? And first of all, how do we know? Is it that you experience a sudden loss of water pressure or no water at all? And then whom do they call in a situation like that? They call directly your organization, or do they call the city itself, or what? Or just call the City of Missoula Water Company.
Yeah, that's probably during business hours. That's the best way to do it. It's 552-6700. If there's some emergency and there's water pouring out of the ground and it's on a weekend, if you call 911, the message is going to get to us, and we are going to get there. But in terms of how you find it, it kind of depends. If you have a cast iron shear break, all of a sudden you have hundreds of gallons a minute of water that's pouring into the ground, and sometimes that will surface and you start to see it. we might find thawed spots in the ground. I mean, there's lots of different ways that we discover leaks. We might have people call in to say, why are my pipes so noisy all of a sudden? But, the real big ones, they do start to surface, and then we show up as quick as we can.
And what happens when this occurs in the dead of winter?
Oh, we have to fix them. I mean, our crews are out there. I don't know if there was any this winter. Last winter, they were out there middle of the night, and it was 10 or 20 below. I mean, it's not a fun job. I mean, these guys and gals work really hard, and they know a lot, and they're really dedicated to providing the service and getting people back in water as quickly as they can.
Because if you ain't got water, that's one of the basics, right? Food, clothing, shelter, water.
Yeah, we definitely view it as a basic human right, for sure.
Well, we're going to come right back. We have Emmett waiting to visit with you, and all of our other phone lines are open. Logan McInnis joining us. He's the Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities. Talking about water and the water that flows underneath our streets and those lovely pipes coming up, helping you cook and clean and flush and all those good things. And we're going to come right back after this.
Hey, boo, have a honey.
Okay, man, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. Cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Show the world that you're tougher than tough. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Okay, welcome back. This is Talk Back. I'm Peter Christian. That's Nick Christensen over there taking your phone calls and producing Talk Back. Our guests here in the studio are Ginny Merriam, Director of Communications with the City, and Logan McInnis. He's Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities. And Emmett has been waiting the longest. Emmett, good morning. You are on with Logan. Go ahead, please, sir.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. Well, Peter, I think you're starting to get my humor, and I think you're becoming like me. I really appreciate it. I love it. Another me. Your humor is wonderful. But,
I think it's time to retire now.
I love it. It's something I do.
Go ahead.
But my question is this. The water pipes near St. Francis Xavier, or I don't know if they're water pipes, but there's a lot of they're pipes being replaced near St. Francis and St. Patrick's Hospital. That whole block is cordoned off with a lot of construction and replacing of pipes. I'm still not sure what it is for, but you might know. Is it for water, or is it for sewage, or is it new water pipes? What is it exactly that's being replaced near St. Francis? The whole street's torn up, really.
Let's ask him. Go ahead, Logan. It's all yours.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for calling. That is a water main replacement on West Pine Street in front of St. Francis, and then the block on the east side of Orange Street as well.
All right, there you go. And so how long will that go? Is there an estimate on how long that's going to be torn up, or is it just as it goes?
I don't know the specifics. I'm sure it's a month or two. That's kind of the typical project duration.
All right, Anthony is on the line. Anthony, good morning. You're on with Logan McInnis. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. McInnis, thank you. I was curious, it's kind of an insurance question. If my water main from the house to the main out, I guess, in the street breaks, who is responsible for, like, the edge of my property to the main? Like, because I've always been confused. It's kind of an insurance question almost. So how does that work, sir? And who's responsible for fixing it if that happens? I mean, in those two scenarios.
All right. Thanks for the call. Yeah, that's a common question. I'm sure you get it all the time.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And you're right. Most people don't understand. So the customer owns the entire water service and sewer service from the point where it connects to the main all the way into the house. So for the water utility, we own the saddle that sits over the main that your pipe's connected to, and we own the corporation valve, which is a little valve right there. But the entire pipe is owned by the customer. And so, yes, if it breaks or if it's leaking or, whatever, it needs to be replaced, that's a customer responsibility.
One of the notices I get with my water bill, I think once a year, is an offer to say, hey, because I have 150 feet between where I live, because I'm off the street, right? 150 feet. If something happened to that line, I would be responsible for repairing that line. And so there is insurance available that you can purchase, right?
Yeah, that's correct. There is a third party. The city's not at all involved, but we did sort of vet them to make sure that they were a legitimate service provider. It's called Service Line Warranties of America. I'm sure most of your listeners have probably received a dozen mailers from them. They do send a lot out, and they do have the city's logo on them, which after significant vetting, we did allow that. They're providing a service that a lot of folks value. There's probably 1,200 customers in Missoula that subscribe to the Service Line warranty, and there's limitations like with any insurance, but it is relatively cheap peace of mind for somebody to know that for $600 or $650 a month that they can have coverage for their service line.
And especially if it gets bitter cold, if it gets way below zero and something happens, then that could be a very, very expensive fix.
Yeah, we tend to see prices, minimum of, $10,000 to replace a full water service line. You can easily get to $15,000, and if it's 150 feet long, it's probably more than that. I hate to break it to you.
Oh yeah, I trust me, I know. Because one of the things I did, I contacted my insurance provider, my house insurance provider, and it is part of my full service coverage. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jenny, please.
I did not realize this myself, and then learned that from my own insurance agent that it's included in some policies. In other policies, you can ask for it and have it added on, or you can look at this third-party insurance. And we also have, correct me if I'm wrong, low-cost loans available through the city for water service line replacements.
That is true. Yeah, the city does and I don't remember what the interest rate is. It's relatively low. We have a loan program available for our customers if they want to do a repair or a service line replacement. That we have funds available for that can be loaned out.
Well, that is good to know because, as we mentioned, this is one of the vital services that every household has to have. So why not make sure that every aspect of that is covered somehow? I mean, that would basically be a little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah, and I'm glad Jenny brought that up, that folks should reach out to their insurance provider and see if that coverage is either available or if it's already included in their policy. And then, like I said, the service line warranties is another option that's available.
And if it is available, to try to factor the amount of money you'd have to spend to replace that with a couple bucks a month that you won't even miss, right? Knowing that protection is there. And I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just saying it seems like it would be common sense that if you could do something inexpensively to ensure something that, if it happened, it might break the bank.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's pretty cheap peace of mind. I mean, they're only going to fix it if it's bubbling out of the ground or you lose pressure. So it's not like you get the insurance, then you call them up the next week and say, hey, my line's old, why don't you come fix it? So like any insurance, there's lots of limitations. So folks should understand what all those limitations are.
Read the fine print.
Always.
All right. We're going to take a little break, come right back. We have Ed waiting to visit with you. We're going to come right back and get his call. Only about 8 minutes left with Logan McInnis. If you have a question or comment, this is City Talk. It's all for you, and he's here to answer your questions. We'll be right back after this. Back to Talk Back. Only about 8 minutes left in our time together, and Logan McInnis very, very generously giving his time. He could be out there working on pipes right now.
You don't want me doing that. I'd screw it up.
This is a little easier duty than that, I imagine. All right. Get off of that backhoe and come on into the radio station. All right, Ed's on the line. Ed, good morning, sir. You're on Talk Back. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'd like to confirm this insurance business because I just contacted my homeowner's policy guy and was able to provide that insurance on that water line coming into the house for a lot less than this other policy that's floating out there. So in any event, talk to your homeowner's guy. And
I believe I just said that.
Yeah, I know. I was having a hard time dialing your number to get in. So sorry about that. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks for the call, Ed. Appreciate that. All right,
yeah.
So in the time that we have left, for those who may be just joining us and saying, it's City Talk, and we're talking about water. So the original reason, I know Ginny wrote up a great press release about the amount of water that goes back into the aquifer out of these leaky pipes is astounding, and sometimes even beyond belief. And so for those who missed that, if you could just kind of do a quick recap. of just exactly, how much has gone into the back down into the aquifer that you are now, because you're replacing these water mains, a lot less leakage.
Yeah, so what we've saved just since last year is enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every day. That's kind of the reduction in leakage. It also would be about 205 million gallons of water per year, just based on kind of last year's reduction. The water and wastewater utilities are the city's biggest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. So we're going to save about 160 metric tons of CO2 equivalents by decreasing that amount of water that we've saved just since last year. Hard to visualize, but it's kind of a big deal.
Well, it is, especially when people are becoming more and more aware of that factor of what goes on in the environment. So, yeah. So all these things add up, right? And so when you get up and go to work in the morning and you see all these projects before you, what goes through your mind? I mean, do you obviously you have a staff that you work with, and how does this all come together where you say, okay, we're going to prioritize this one first, this one second, this one can wait?
Yeah, we do have a great team of professionals over at this city. So every year we kind of look around and say, well, what projects are out there? What streets need to be replaced? And then we have GIS, we overlay all the utilities and the streets and the other projects. And so there's a lot of factors that go into deciding what's our priority for the year. But in terms of waters, we are really focused on those old pipes I talked to you about, the Calamine and invasion pipes there's about 8 miles more of those left to go that within a few years, those will be gone, and then we'll kind of move on to the sort of next priority pipe material.
And primarily, where are those older pipes?
They're just generally in the older parts of town. University area, the downtown, lower Rattlesnake. That's where the old pipes tend to be, and where we think our leakage is probably the worst.
All right. And so there you go. So, by the way, the phone lines are still open. We have about 5 minutes left in our time together. What else that you are doing that you'd like to share we haven't touched on yet, Logan?
I'm just focused on that leakage number. I've been seeing that number go up and up and up, and finally to see the curve turning the other way and going down the last couple of years is pretty fulfilling for me. Our team works hard. We have folks, like you said, out there when it's 20 below fixing leaks, and it takes all of that. We have to replace things, but we also have to do maintenance. We have to fix pumps and pump houses. I mean, there's just so many aspects in it. There's just a whole several dozen people over at Missoula Water that are working hard to keep the water in the pipes as much as they can, and a similar crew out at wastewater that they're cleaning sewer mains, and they're doing all kinds of things out at the wastewater plant that people wouldn't really want to know about. That we, like I said, try to kind of stay behind the scenes and just we just have a really dedicated team of folks that believe in service.
And I know you're working with very closely with folks like Brian Hensel, who's been a guest on this show many, many times. We talked to him about potholes. We talked about plowing and all that kind of thing. But I remember there was a street over here by Winco that was so bad. He said it would look like a wagon trail, and so they had to dig up the entire street from, I think it was from a reserve street all the way to that residential area, and replace the entire street. Now, in a situation like that, is that something you would be looking over the shoulder and say, you know what, we could probably replace a water main there if we needed to, right?
We do definitely look at projects. We didn't replace that specific piece of main because it wasn't that old. But okay. I would assure you, we look at that and we try to decide is that a priority. And I think we do try to think pretty globally. Like, okay, we don't just view this as a water project. We want, at the end of the day, we want a nice street to be there when we get our work done.
You bet. I believe we have time for one more call. Harry is waiting to visit with you. Let's get Harry's on. Harry, we got about a minute and a half. Harry, real quickly, what's on your mind?
Yeah, real quick. You brought up about the leaks. How do you determine how much is leaking? How does that determined?
Twice a year we have our folks fill up tanks, and from basically 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. we calculate how much water we pump in and how much water leaves the tank. And it's, we have some assumptions about what people are actually using at 2 a.m. I mean, the bars are just getting shut down, so there's still some water being used. So we have to make some assumptions, but it's it's basically just looking at those tank levels for an hour or two period, and that's kind of a middle of the night study that we have several folks that come into the office to do that, and it's a twice annual study.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks for the call, Harry. Okay, so some final words. So we've got about a minute and a half here. It's yours. What can we do as the public, our listeners, what can we do to help you and make your job a little bit easier?
With construction, we always want to remind people to just try to avoid the area, to drive slowly and safely through there. So that's, we have 4 projects going on. By the summer, there'll be 7 or 8. So, we have a lot of construction workers kind of in harm's way. So that's probably the main thing is just please try to avoid those areas, and then just drive carefully and kind of keep your eyes out for the workers.
Slow down, right? That's why they're wearing those great big orange vests, right?
Yep, or high vis.
You bet. Logan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. You were very helpful.
Well, thank you very much. And I also want to just thank our customers. I think we have very loyal customers, and they are paying the bill, and we appreciate their willingness to do that.
Thanks for being with us.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Nick, we're looking forward to Monday. So what's coming up on Monday's fabulous program, sir?
It's going to be the KGVO book club with Amir, Dad, and Michael, but we'll do open phones for the first half hour or so.
All right. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Something to look forward to for Monday. And again, a big thank you to Logan and Ginny and all of our callers this morning. You guys are great. And we try to get City Talk on at least, a couple times a month, right? Something like that?
Second and fourth Fridays. Be there or be square.
And we're going to have a county talk eventually. We haven't had one for a little while. So we'll get the county talk. And all of the public servants that come into our studio, whether they're federal or state, and take questions from our listeners, you guys are all awesome. We appreciate it. So get out there and enjoy this weekend, and have yourselves a wonderful time. And we will talk to you Monday morning at 6 o'clock with Ace Sour Wine for another edition of Montana Morning. Have a great weekend.